the goal that is less wordy, and then, okay, do you have an actual plan for how you're going to get there? And the reason that's important is because I think you have to reference both of them through the course of the process. Sometimes when the plan doesn't have a description or prescription for what you need to go back to that vision, and then you have to be able to think your way through it.
Welcome to the 1% Edge podcast, where we dive into the journeys of extraordinary guests committed to getting 1% better every day. All right, today's topic, chasing opportunity versus staying the course when your go-to-market plan is under pressure. And it's an interesting topic because I see it all the time in different organizations. And I'm lucky to have Tim Hanrahan. Hopefully I said it right.
Did indeed.
Thank you, buddy. Sales operations expert, prior client, and all around great individual. Join me for this thing. Welcome to the podcast, Tim.
Great to be here, Carlos. Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's jump right in.
Sure.
What do you mean by the topic? So let's put some brackets around it. You know, what's the core problem or challenge that you see with these companies' go-to-market plans?
Well, certainly, Carlos, you have to have a plan, right? I think we all know that, and some of them are robust, are more robust than others. But I think that once you've established that plan, and hopefully, what I like to say about that plan, there's two pieces of it. One is the vision. What's the goal that is less wordy, and then, okay, do you have an actual plan for how you're going to get there? And the reason that's important is because I think you have to reference both of them through the course of the process. Sometimes when the plan doesn't have a description or prescription for what you need to go back to that vision, and then you have to be able to think your way through it.
All right. So on having a plan, Tim, sometimes I see organizations that believe they've created the greatest thing since sliced bread. Their go-to-market plan is that we're going to conquer the world, but they don't really do enough research and analysis of what really is their target market, what really is their ICP, their ideal customer profile, or they mislead themselves, right? They have this hypothesis, but they don't test it enough, in going into market. What are some of your thoughts there about the plan part?
Well, I'm a big fan of consistency across the plan. So if you have a business plan, which should cover a lot of what you just described, your go-to-market plan, in my opinion, is a piece of that. But they have to dovetail with each other. They can't be disparate activities. They should reference each other, or definitely the GTM should reference back to the overall business plan, because otherwise, when you do run into those challenges, when you run into no one knows exactly what to do, you just lack the foundation to make the next best decision. I wish that every plan could cover every eventuality. They just don't. And you're going to need some frame of reference, which can be that vision. It can be the overall business plan, and then it can be the actual GTM plan in front of you at the time.
All right. I got another question on this plan thing, because I get it. And I know you like the Mike Tyson quote, everybody has a plan till they get punched in the face. By the same token, right? You can't go into a battle without having a plan or strategy on how you're going to win, right?
Right.
But the thing that it's a balance, right? You want to have a plan. You don't want to be in analysis paralysis. And then you got the other side of it of, hey, you want to be flexible, but you can't trash the plan just because a big logo or opportunity came across the front. Any thoughts there?
No, yeah, I think that's well said. It's why that original vision or your mission or whatever you want to call it, you've got to remain true to that. And what I like to say to people is, if you know what that is, when in doubt, refer back to that. Keep yourself within that grand, vision for your company. The plan is if it's overly detailed, then you've kind of wasted some time, and you're being too prescriptive, and you're being naive about what's actually going to happen. So to me, when you sit down and you have a challenge, whatever it might be, and sometimes you can predict them, sometimes you can't. You need to have those, like I said, that maybe those three pieces. The original vision and your mission, and what's your purpose. What is your overall business model, and then what is your specific go-to-market plan. That won't get you out every time. You're still going to have to make decisions. You're still going to have to use your judgment. and communicate and do all those other really important tasks. But yeah, you at least have to triangulate a little bit, reduce the variability by having some foundation. And I personally, that's how I found I was able to navigate. A lot of startup work. I've done a lot of new product work. I've done new departments, etc. There's a lot of similarities, but none of them were the same. And all of them, we had a plan, but never did we meet that plan exactly the way we thought it was when we wrote it.
Got it. All right. So we got this plan. Business is taking off. I call it the curse and blessing of early success. So sometimes, let's start with the blessing side. Hey, you know what? We start seeing traction in a certain segment with a certain type of company, with a certain type of use case. And it is part of our plan, and it's really taking off. And companies double down on it and really drive it forward, and it really accelerates growth. Then there's the curse side of the equation. Well, we never thought about using it this way, but if we stand the product on its head, flip it over here a little bit, this could work. We could get this big logo. Any thoughts on that, Tim? And have you seen that as well?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and you're right. You can get out on a limb pretty far there, chasing something. And what I find is that lack of consistency often breeds uncertainty throughout the organization. People then aren't exactly sure what we're doing. We aren't exactly sure what we're about, what our next deal is about. And what I find is that creates just a lack of confidence. On occasion, I'll use an analogy. Anyone that knows me will laugh when they hear that. But, if we're going to send someone out to the table in a restaurant and they're going to explain tonight's specials, they need to know what they're talking about. They have to be certain what is involved, and they have to be able to convey that confidently, answer any questions, etc. And that is important if you're going to get that sale of that particular special that night. That's true in regular old business too, where if people, your salespeople, or just any of your leaders aren't confident in exactly what we're doing, they aren't confident in what they're trying to convey, that uncertainty immediately goes into the ears of your customers, your partners, whoever it is, and it tends to undo your mission. So if you're all over the place when you're coming out of the gate, just because you had a little success here or a little failure there, and you decide to abandon your business model and your plan, well, you get what you deserve sometimes, so try not to get out on a limb. There's all kinds of famous sayings on this one, but certainly there's a few about, eggs in baskets and other things like that you have to keep in mind at all times when you're in the face of a lot of challenge and variability in the early days.
Yeah. And if I had to give a piece of advice on that one, it's like, you might have some use cases, not just tech. I love it when people go, so what does your product really do? What would you like it to do? Wrong answer.
Right.
At least say, hey, you got this amazing tech stack. And then here, for example, is at least one or two or three of my use cases.
Right. And I absolutely agree with that. And that helps keep you within what you believe are your strengths, especially when it comes to your technology and your pricing and other things. It kind of helps keep you a little bit in the fairway, so to speak. I believe that just like a job interview is two ways, these discussions with potential clients are two ways as well. You need to know when you're about to get yourself into a situation that's going to either demand too much of your time or too much flexibility, get you off your game, and potentially mire you down such that you can't really achieve the next steps on your original plan. So yeah, that's that. Carlos, have a saying that every review that anyone ever gets could be one word, and that's judgment. It's just, what's your judgment on that type of stuff? And to help your judgment, you have these foundational things. You have communication, your teammates. But sometimes it is going to come to a person or maybe one or two people to make a decision about how much complexity, how far off the original plan do you want to go in order to pursue a piece of business. And no two of those are the same. But you're going to have to ask good questions, and then you're going to, maybe need to sleep on that one tonight. That's not a decision you make in 30 seconds, right?
So it sounds like you got some scars from this.
Yeah. I have seen. I got scars from a lot of things, but I have seen people get a little far afield, and it's a blessing and a curse, like you say. You see that large customer. You just have to understand. I call it a gravitational pull. do they have such a gravitational pull that they're going to pull you into their universe, and you're going to be out of your neighborhood, and you're going to be, kind of doing their bidding and getting, kind of your time consumed, your money consumed, and just your thought process consumed by something that's bigger than you really should be tackling right now. And sure, we all know that story about the company that started small and they ran into some huge partner, and now they're all sitting on yachts, etc. I get that, but that's such a unique situation. I really don't think you can run your company that way. So you do have to be cautious about getting pulled out of your comfort zone, your business plan, and getting too heavy on and too reliant on one customer, because if something goes sideways, now you've got nothing or next to nothing.
Yeah, I was consulting this robotics company out of Boston, and one of we're talking about different opportunities, and one of them was Amazon. And I was surprised by the CEO's response. He goes, Carlos, Amazon is a behemoth. We're a tiny little ship. Where we are in our development, it suck us dry for years, testing, piloting, trying different things out, and do nothing. And we will be out of business and out of cash before it's all said and done. So we got to pick the projects that we really have the expertise and the people and the ability to execute around in the short term to create that runway. So we could have Amazon 2 or 3 years down the road. And I thought that was so mature and so disciplined of them.
And that rings true. That rings true with me. You have to understand the size of your business itself, just what you can handle, and then how big or small of a player are you with one of those. If you're trying to work with Amazon and you're less than 1/10 of 1% of what they do, you're not a consideration. You will just have to go which way they go, and that could be good for you or it could be terrible for you. And I don't like the idea that you don't have determination of what's going to happen, that you're beholden to this really large deal or this really large partner. No portfolio. Would someone say, "Hey, I got an idea. Why don't you put all your money into one stock?" And nobody would really suggest that you put all of your go-to-market efforts into one customer or one client.
Yeah, and that's a good way to put it. All right. So 2 more things. Let me do this one first. So a lot of times these plans start with, and we have no competition. I go, really? So, what are your competitive differentiators? We don't need any because there's nobody that does what we do. Have you ever run into that mindset?
Oh yeah, secret sauce and all this other stuff and black boxes and all kinds of other terms that people use that really just explain away that they don't know what's going on in their market, unless you're doing something that is completely unproductive and completely unsuccessful. Somebody in the market would be interested in what you're doing, and if you're oblivious to that, that's probably more of a testament on your knowledge and awareness than it is on you being a genius. It's probably more that you're a bit obtuse about what's actually going on out there. And if you are heading down a pathway where you think you have no competition, I think it makes sense to stop for a second and ask why. Just like if you were on a path on a mountain or somewhere else, and you suddenly realize no one else is going in your direction, you might want to ask yourself why. And sure, over the next crest could be a great discovery, or it could be because it's a dead end. And I think you just have to have your eyes open. And I have heard people use that, we have no competition, we have no peers type of thing. And I thought, well, that's anti logic to me. That's not realistic, and it's highly improbable. And I would say my experience is that most times, if there wasn't a competitor, it's because somebody had already outsmarted them and was already 2 blocks ahead.
Well, I have a strong opinion on this, and I'll start with a line that I'm stealing from a good buddy of mine, Don Smith. His line was, "No competition, no market."
Yeah.
If there really is no competition, that means no one else in the planet has figured out that this is a market opportunity for you.
Right. Yeah.
And
My
he's so
dad.
true.
I'm sorry. My dad always used to say, "No one has ever repealed the laws of economics." And so, if the laws of economics are in play, then if there's a market, then there should be competition. Simple as
Well,
that.
and if anybody's a founder out there listening, going, "Oh, but I'm on to something," I believe you. I honestly believe you're the first one there. I do. Here's the gotcha. The problem that you are trying to solve that you think is huge and you found a better mousetrap for, everyone on the planet has lived with that problem and the workaround that they have today for years.
Yeah.
And so your competition is, number one and foremost, doing nothing. What I have today, the problem is not that critical that I should invest in change. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it really does. And if you have come up with an innovation, and like you say, sure, I believe you. But then you need to be cognizant that you don't have competition right now. But if you have come up with some clever innovation, some pricing model that works better for you, again, back to the markets, well, other people will adapt. So if you don't have competition today, you're going to have it
Tomorrow. Yep.
and you have to be prepared either way.
All right. So we talked about creating a plan, testing the plan. It's going to come under test. Okay. When that big opportunity or that thing that's just outside your plan does come up, who should be involved in evaluating and making that decision? Now, as you think about your answer, I mean, if it's just the head of sales, like if it's just me that ran sales, guess what? I'm a little biased because, my role is usually less than 2 years and I have a pressure on me to hit my number. So I am more likely to swing and miss and not worry about it.
Yeah.
Which individuals or titles should be involved in those changes?
Well, a lot of organizations, Carlos, come up with a go-to-market committee or go-to-market team, whatever you want to call it. And I stand on a little bit of formality on these types of things, which is I do believe that especially decisions that could affect the material performance of your corporation need to have the right people in that conversation. Hopefully you thought of that when you kind of made your GTM committee. You've got those people, you know who they are, they know what their role is, and you're able to bring them together and get that conversation held and make a decision quickly. It's not one that I've seen where founders sometimes they decide they're going to make that decision on their own, and you know what that creates a lot of chatter. That we're chasing a butterfly or whatever the case is, or some random idea somebody had. So yeah, fall back on where we started, which is, do you have a plan? And that plan should include some kind of decision-making continuity, consistency, time frame, whatever it might be. If you haven't met with your GTM team in the last X amount of time, it's probably a good time to get together, have a brief conversation, and at least make sure that we're all on the same page.
Okay, so I want to double down on it because I don't really have. I'm thinking through my own answer on this, okay. and I guess the reason for it is because it depends how big the company is, right? Yeah. But think who should be on that committee. I guess early on, if it's a smaller startup, it's the leadership team, right? It could be your CFO, your head of engineering, your founder, your head of sales, head of marketing, maybe, those types of folks. As the organization gets bigger, I guess is it still those same functions? Am I missing one?
Well, I think you got to you have to be aware of what you're dealing with. But quite often, if you don't have somebody from your IT tech world in there, you could find out that you've created a solution that's going to run into some problem you hadn't anticipated. Look, I come from a variety of backgrounds, and I was a big fan, believe it or not, of bringing more people in early than not. My impression was that decisions got made faster when people were brought in, had a chance to have their input, and then you could thank them for their input and make that decision, as opposed to running that gauntlet of now 8 different people are going to review that decision or question it or have second thoughts about it or kind of undermine it. So I'd bring people in up front. You do have to be aware, what is this decision involving? If it has no involvement in tech, then they're just informed of the decision, right? But you need to know who should be at the table. And if you don't know, then I unfortunately would err on the side of, well, then bring people in, because you don't need a surprise 2 months from now to find out that you should have had somebody from legal at least hear what you were talking about before you went ahead and did something. Friends of mine, peers would argue with me at length about that. I'm just the guy that said, I want to do this once, not 3 times. So I'd rather bring you in, put you to the test of what's your input, what are your thoughts, give me your perspective. We'll make a decision. We'll tell you what that decision is. but there's no second guessing. There's no let's rethink it again. Peanut gallery, any of that kind of stuff. Let's get it done and let's get moving.
That's a good point. And I didn't even think about legal, because think about you get into some markets. Like I got involved in this federal contractor deal, and I just getting the legal aspects of their RFP was a nightmare. Just doing the NDA part and thinking through it all was a big process, and then thinking about the liability associated to it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and it's back to that word judgment, right? Which is it's someone's judgment, could be the founder, could be, a team of people like you say, who needs to be in this discussion. And what separates those that are successful sometimes from those that aren't is that lack of judgment. You can work yourself into quite a ditch if you don't include the right people. And back to that certainty, if you have to go back and now marketing has chimed in and they're not happy that this was going to happen, that this is contrary to a relationship we have, whatever the case might be, then everyone is standing around going, so we don't know what we're doing. And we're retreading things and it looks like we're not moving. And if you're early days, you don't have time for that. And the last thing you need is for people to start questioning, do we actually know what we're doing? That's a really
interesting. Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up, because early on I thought about this whole go-to-market plan and going adrift as the financial impacts to the organization and its direction. But you're bringing up, Tim, you're bringing up something else as well, which is the cultural impact of the organization. If you and I, go to work for a startup and we're all gung-ho about the mission, and then next thing you know, that mission gets thrown out the window because there's a hot deal out there, and then we start seeing a horrible win rate on these hot deals because we're not doing our homework. It really demoralizes us and our willingness to even stay there, because the top reps usually have a high win percentage because they're very disciplined in their thinking and process, not because of just chasing windmills.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We know there's 1,000 sayings about salespeople, right? But yeah, they're some people just have the ability to quickly understand where they are in a deal, how to kind of keep it within the boundaries of time and subject matter, et cetera, and bring it home. And others get distracted and get off the path pretty quickly. So yeah, the ability to keep within the plan and within the overall, like I said, that vision of what this company does, what it's about, keeps people when they're in doubt. They're like, okay, I understand why we made that decision, or I see it's also easier to explain when you've kept within some kind of parameters that you've already had. But yeah, you can't have your top salespeople. Quite often, in my experience, are also the ones who are very quick to say, your uncertainty and indecision and confusion is actually backing up on me. And now you're starting to hurt my ability to hit my targets, feed my family, hit my goals. And because of who they are, and because they're usually highly in demand, that's the last group of people that you want saying, I don't think we know what we're doing. Because if the 80-20 is true and all that other kind of good stuff, which it usually is, then they're the last people that you want going to bed at night saying, I'm not sure. Because back to the server selling that special, if they're not sure whether it's going to be good, if they're not sure what's in it, if they're not sure that it's going to pair with everything else, then they're just not going to sell it. But since their livelihood depends on sales, and back to our competition thing, well, in the event that there is competition, guess where your top salespeople might look to go? The people that do know what they're doing. So it all ties together. It really does.
All right. So what else? And what I mean by that is, as you're looking at your plan, you're faced with these decisions. Do you change and take the risk, or do you say no and stay the course? Any other aspects that we need to discuss or where I might be missing?
Well, I think you have to be able to assess how's everything else going, right? You can take a risk. You can take two risks. You can't take risks across the board. You need to understand where things are. If you're feeling good about the other aspects of what's going on, and you feel like, hey, we're coordinated, we're on time, we're on budget, etc., you can take a risk. Most plans, whether it's on paper or the budget, have some room for a little bit of overage or a little bit of this or that. The judgment that's involved is, do you want to fight on every front, or do you want to say we've got a lot of these things pinned down and we can take a little risk over here? So yeah, I love risk. The best successes I've had are when we took a risk, but they weren't blind risk, and we weren't taking risk on 6 different angles at the same time.
Yeah, I call it playing the odds. Like you said, you wouldn't go to Vegas, take all your money, put it on black, and say, let's go.
Right.
You're going to decide, hey, I'm going to play a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Hey, things are going well. I'm going to take more risks there, or
Right.
they're not going so well. I think I'm going to go to the betting lounge and just hang out and watch some sports.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. It's that understanding of your surroundings, what's going on. Listening, by the way, people can debate whether red, yellows, and greens are a good idea, whatever. But do you know where you stand on your key plan components? And if you feel like you've got things in hand, sure, take a little risk. Don't bet the ranch and the dog on it, but bet enough that you feel like, hey, this is going to get us a return. That sets a good example for everybody as well. People want to follow people who will take some risk, not crazy risk or dumb risk, but people want to see that there's opportunity out there, and that you're the kind of person that instills some belief that you're willing to take a chance because you count on them, you depend on them. I would encourage anybody not to think that they personally are taking a chance. They're taking a chance for everybody, and you can show a lot of faith in your team when you take a chance. If you take that chance by yourself without the team, we're back to where you were a minute ago, which is now morale is questioning. People feel like they can't trust that your interests are the same as theirs. That's a bad situation.
Fair enough. Hey, I know I can go on forever on this thing, so eventually I got to come to a conclusion. Tim, you said it earlier. You do have an interesting background. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, I've been fortunate to do a lot of things. If there was one common theme through my career, it's been starting at ground zero. I've opened restaurants and hotels and new departments, new regions for companies, new products, etc. I've been involved in a lot of M&A work over time, so I've seen a lot of what happens on early stages. I've done some startup work more than once, and I currently do some advising to startups now, because I've seen how important those early days decisions, that foundation is. Like you and I were saying, you're not rigid, but you have to have some foundation. And so I've been lucky to do that time and time again. Different roles, practices, different levels, size of organizations. I've managed as little as 5 people, as many as 5,000 at different times. And what I have always tried to do is stay true to a couple of core principles about what really makes the organization successful, and therefore hopefully I'm successful as well.
Love it. All right. And Tim, what would you say your 1% edge is? What's that thing you try to work on every day to get better?
Well, I think, Carlos, I try and make sure that I believe that nothing happens by accident, nothing happens by chance. That good and bad, I try and assess it and understand. Well, what could I have done better? What can I capitalize on that may be going in my benefit right now? So what I don't do is ascribe results to luck, bad luck, whatever the case is. I expect myself to have anticipated most of those things. I shouldn't be surprised by them. And I should understand that whatever has happened, whatever I've just learned, whatever is in my end of my analysis or results, or the bottom right box on the spreadsheet, isn't a result of anything other than the leadership, the learning, the teamwork, etc. And if it's not exactly what I want, let's adjust it and try and make it better tomorrow. So I've always just believed that it's really not luck and happenstance. It's good old fashioned understanding the variables and managing them and leading, and that works.
Yeah, I have a slight pet peeve. I got a lot of them, I guess, Tim. But one of them is like, oh, you got lucky to get that job or be at that company or do that thing. And yeah, sometimes you're at the right place at the right time. I get that. But uh don't undervalue all the hard work, late nights that you built and cultivate. They get you there along the way. And
Yeah.
that's a lot of people want to have the luck and success without the hard work.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right, and yeah, I do think you can be fortunate with certain events, but just pure luck? No, I don't believe that that's very often the case. And you aren't in that time or that place to use your reference unless you intended to be there. Very rarely does everything come together just by chance. That just doesn't happen.
Yeah, there's a saying that the harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yeah, yeah. And I think back to where we started. The more you plan, the more you understand what your overall mission was, the more that you have a business model and you have a go-to-market plan, the luckier you're going to get, because those decisions will come faster. You'll be able to be a little more efficient in the process. You'll keep people motivated and moving in the same direction. And suddenly it feels like you're lucky, but you're really not.
Great point. Let's end it there. I think it's an awesome one. Tim, if people want to hire you, get coaching from you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
I would say LinkedIn, really, Carlos, is that central place where people could get a hold of me, drop me a note, and inquire. That's where I've been approached for whether it's advising startups or doing coaching, etc. Happy to help where I can. I'm fortunate to have seen and done a few things, and I like sharing them when I can.
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate it, and I appreciate your counsel over the years as well.
Likewise.
It's been very beneficial to me. I'm grateful for having our relationship, buddy.
Likewise. Thank you very much, Carlos.
All right, everyone. That does it for this week's episode. If you got value out of my conversation with Tim, please subscribe, comment back. Let me know how it's going. And I really appreciate your support. Until next time, I want nothing but the best success for you. Thank you, everyone.